All right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be working on a new HTML project. What I'm going to be showing you guys is basically different tags you can use and how you're going to put them into HTML to get them displayed on your HTML page. And so we'll get started.
I won't respond to that.
First, I'm going to go into our VS projects. Go ahead and, well, I'll show you guys the terminal. All right. So I downloaded something on Microsoft. It's called Terminal, and you can use separate terminals at the same time. So I'll show you guys through command prompt since a lot of people have that. I'll show an install for Ubuntu or Ubuntu later on. But basically, to navigate through your command prompt, hit CD, and then I use a OneDrive slash VS projects. Oh, that might not work. I have to rename my folder -VS projects. It does not like when you have blank spaces, but it worked. All right, cool. It's cleaner like if you guys add a dash in between or underscore, however you like it. Normally people, what I'm used to is they use a dash. I just didn't do it on naming the folder. I wasn't expecting to show the command prompt so soon. But from here, we can actually make a directory. So you make dir mkdir, and then you call it what you needed. So this one we'll call HTML-start. And then to check if what you have in this folder, the VS projects, you'll hit ls. It's going to show you. So right here we have HTML start and our hello world that we created in our previous video. So I want to navigate to the HTML start. So CD again, HTML-start. And there you go, you're inside. So you from here, I believe it works in my command prompt as well. New code dot. And that'll actually pull up on my other screen. It'll actually pull up your VS code. So it's very useful. I normally do everything through the command prompt now. At first, I thought it was going to be harder to deal with, but over time, like it saves you a lot of time. So just creating and using the command prompt when you need it. So since we're already in, I can start creating. So I'm going to create my index.html file. And like I showed before, you hit Shift-1 to get the exclamation point and just hit return, and boom, you have your file up. Now I'm showing my browser because I'm going to automatically I'm going to go to Open Live Server, which is the extension. Like I showed in my previous video, you install your extensions over here. And what Live Server allows you to do is it's a live preview of your HTML file. Right now, of course, it's empty. So our title says document. So let's go ahead and change that. So that HTML starter page. You name it, whatever you want. Then I'm going to hit Control Save, and now our web page title has changed. You can change the icon too, but that I'll go over a little later. Right now, I just want to show you guys about how to use tags and just get into there. So inside our body is where you're going to want to create these. Now we have things like a div, and then within you have H1 tags. You also have H2, H3, H4, and whatnot. You're just going to use each one is going to do something different. So this is going to be, it's a header tag. So you're going to do header H1, Control save, and it's going to be this huge tag. Now, if I change this to an H2 tag, it's going to shrink, and then H3, H4, H5, and just keep going on and on. Not sure when it ends, but normally I stick around the H1 to H3-ish, but each one. So this one, instead of being so bold, it's thinner. So you can find easy shortcuts for this, or a cheat sheet, like cheat sheet online, and it'll have all these tags. So quick Google search and you'll have it there. Now, besides the H1, so we see that it's displayed up here, but the only difference is from if I do just a regular typing in here. What this does is this H7 tag or H1 or div, it's a container for your text, and each one's gonna do something different. So the div, it's just your basic, this is a div. Each one's going to be different. So the div actually is going to show up on top of it. So by default, if I put this next, if I put something into a tag, it's going to display on top of one another. If I wanted to switch this up and I put H7 on top and then hit save, it's going to rotate it. But now we're seeing not a header does not go on to the end of our div. All right, so if you're thinking about it, these tags are containers for all your text, your image files, or whatever you're going to do. And later that's important because not only does it allow you to apply some style to it or some type of display, but later on, once we get into creating a CSS file, you'll actually be able to manipulate them depending on their tag, or say this like the tag. So we'll just go ahead and show it. So to create a style sheet, you can name it styles, you can name it style sheet. Basic is style.css, and then it's blank, right? So what you need to do with this is you need to actually include a link underneath your title. So the link tag. And with VS Code, it comes with these shortcuts. So you have link CSS. You have all these other ones that we don't need to touch on right now. The important one is the CSS. It's our style sheet, how we want things to look or appear on our HTML file page. So we're going to go ahead and it defaults to style. You can go into the settings inside JavaScript and have that automatic tab put styles or styles sheet, however you want. But for now, we don't really need to do that because we already named it style CSS. So this is our reference, and it's referencing our style sheet inside of our HTML start folder, or our directory repository, however you want to call it. So again, hit save. Nothing happened yet because we didn't call upon it. So right now, these are just tags. So I can call on this tag, and I just type in div for div, open bracket, and maybe I want to give it a border. So I can say border 1 pixel. I will make that more visible. 2 pixels, space. We can make it solid. We can make it dashed. We'll just keep with solid for now, and we'll just say a black border. And you can choose blue border, whatnot, but black border this one. Control save, and now our div is saved in there. Now, since this isn't in anything, it kind of messes with your file. So you really want to be able to give everything inside its tag, and then you want to give some type of ID or class. So a good rule of thumb is don't just put things outside of tags. Tags are there for us to use and be able to manipulate them later. So As soon as I did that, it goes away. And so, yeah, they're very useful this way. So we can make that either one. It's out of there. And then we could even give this a greater thing. We could say ID tab, and then we could put, say, first div, or depending on what that div is doing, you're going to want to name it whatever purpose that tag is doing. It could be a counter, it could be the date, it could be name. It depends on what you are doing with it is what you want to do. So, but for this, we'll just say first div, and we'll hit save, and then we'll say, and we can then call upon that ID in here. And to do that, we do a hashtag, and we type in first div again, dash div. We're calling that ID name. And then we're going to style it more. We could say it has a background color of, I don't know, blue. Control save, and now it's filled in with the blue. Same thing. We can, of course, call that the header here, but maybe we want to put a class and say, and that's another thing. It's another thing. You can give everything a class and an ID, and depending, you might have a group of divs that you want all under the same class, but each one of their IDs are different, or vice versa, depending on how you are setting up your HTML file. There are best practices out there that you can get used to when you're going through code or watching other tutorial videos, or you're doing training on other websites. But for all intents and purposes, you can do it however you like. As long as you stay consistent, your web page and your files are going to be clearly read by yourself and others, as long as you are consistent with your naming and your structure. So right here, we'll just call this one header 1, because I don't really have any specific use for this H7 other than showing you guys. So down here for classes, you're going to use dot, not hashtag. Use dot, and then you're going to do header 1. Normally, you're not going to really see a lot of people. Like, you could use the camel text, I believe it's called, where you use like an uppercase instead of a dash. But from what I've seen, most people, they'll always end up using dashes with these. With a camel case, you'll use that later on for other things, especially inside of JavaScript. So right now, like that's case, I just use dashes. If you guys want to do that, cool. If you don't, it's up to you really, as long as you stay consistent. So in here, we'll just say it has a, I don't know, green border. We'll say it has a green, oh no, I do 1 pixel. You gotta say how thick you want the border. You can make it 10 pixels, but it's kind of look terrible right now. I'm just showing you guys. We'll just say dash. Dash, there you go. And then we could say green. And hit save. And then it has this really ugly green thing. Now you're seeing things overlap. You're gonna want to put distance between your tags. So to do this, we can do it a couple ways, or one way actually. You want to give it some margin. So I can give it the whole thing margin on all sides. So it's this, if I just type in margin, it'll apply it to everything. So I could say 20 pixels, and then that's where it's at. If I want to give padding, you can give something padding. Give that another 20 pixels. Now the padding will actually make the container space bigger. So it's not something like you're gonna want to place this better on the page when you're doing it. So a lot of people, when they're giving themselves margins and paddings, they kind of just throw both in there, and then as they're working on their page, they'll start manipulating those later down the line. For me, myself, actually, I don't do anything to it first. I look at whatever mock-up that we're supposed to do, and then I just try to get it best as I can as I go along. But a lot of people I see, they actually just start out with like 20 or 10 or 5 just to see what it's doing. Sometimes if I'm not sure what's going on in my page because I got a lot of code going, I'll give it a stupid amount of padding just to see where I'm at and how it's affecting the rest of my page. Because when you're giving things padding and margin, especially when you get a lot of tags out there and a lot of things going on, and they start pushing around on each other, that's when you want to start working with flex or grid. But again, we'll get into that a little bit more later. But we'll actually get rid of padding. So right now, I guess we need to give that more to. So it's just going to keep moving over. I don't particularly like that. So what we can do is we can call a specific margin bottom. And we can make the margin between the two divs bigger without affecting the left, right, or top. We'll say, I don't know, we'll just give it 40, see what that does. It's not moving. So maybe my problem is, let's see, both in there. I don't normally use the header outside of a div, so let's try to put the H7 into a div. And that will actually give us a better lineup. No? Oh. All right. So I gave it too much on this one. So let's actually give my divs some margin between them, each other. So we'll give the margins 20 pixels. There we go. See, now everything shifted. But as soon as I take away this margin here, it's going to get a little bit more uniformed. And now the problem is I put this guy in a box earlier, the first div here. And now what's happening is it's now putting the rest of it, the other div in there. And that's the problem calling specifics. So if I just wanted the last one to have the border, the second div, I don't want to call every single div because then it's going to apply no matter how many divs I create, it's going to give it out there. So now, boom, now it's gone. And now even that ghost one, I know people probably are going to ask about that, but that's the problem with doing that. There's an empty container down there. Now it's much more clear. I got my padding or my margin 20% or 20 pixels on top or the left here in the top, and it's getting a little bit more organized. That's very important. Now other things we can do, like it's very good thing, like you're going to use divs a lot, so like it just makes things a lot more sectioned out. So you could put like 15 things inside of a div depending on what you want to do. So maybe I want to make this second div bigger. Now, one thing is you still don't want to leave these texts hanging out just out of nowhere. So you're going to want to at least say something like this one is an H7. So maybe this one, I just want to be a regular paragraph. So what I'm going to do, space, paragraph. P. So now, and it even changes your container size. So if you got to be careful with which ones you're doing. So that container is now there. And yes, we could add some negative padding to this to make it there, but for example purposes, this shows you just fine. Your paragraph container is going to be a little bigger. It's going to have something in there. So everything has its default settings. So maybe within this div as well, I want to put something like an ordered list. Let me get rid of the blue so it's a little bit neater. So I commented this out. We could always come back and uncomment it. So the shortcut key for that is Control \. That's going to comment that out right away. I can then like just keep commenting everything out if I want, and then Control C everything back. I think it's good practice to do that more than deleting, because sometimes you might want that thing, the thing that you wanted, and then you have to go back and retype it or Control Z. Just easier to comment it out, and then you know, hey, I commented that out. All right, what did I exactly comment it out? And then, oh, maybe I'll see what it looks like now, or maybe I wanted to use it still, but it's interfering with something that you're doing. So you have to figure things out. So commenting things out is actually really useful. So again, now I'm going to do an ordered list inside this second div. All right. As soon as I did. So I have an ordered list. Now I can just add text. Add some names. And boom. Now the ordered list should do something a little different, but since I'm not adding them properly, this is just saying, all right, I have an ordered list here. So what should be used with these is the li, list items. I got li, I could say Bobby. And there, now it's working properly. The ordered list or the unordered list, they work with. All right, and right now I'm going to copy that line. So, sorry, one cool thing about this is that you don't have to highlight the whole thing and then Control C to copy. You can just click on the line that you want. Like I want this line up here. So I hit Control C on that line. I come down here and paste it down there. So I want to make some more line items. I can just keep doing that. Another thing we can do, let's see if I remember this properly. You can do li asterisk, so it's Shift 8, and then say I want 3 more line items. And then it basically multiplies how many times it's going to print out the li, and which is pretty cool. Saves you a little time. If you know how many you want, or roughly, we got Nick, Johnny, or something. There. And now we have our line items there. So an ordered list, an order means obviously in order, 1, 2, 3. So maybe we want to see this list in unordered. What we'll do, so we'll change, since I have that extension that whatchamacallit, auto tag renamer, I can simply just change the O to UL. And now we have an unordered list. And now we just have the bullet format. And, you know, it's just good things to know. Like you're going to need them at some point. And we are now learning how to use different tags. Now, we do see that I'm not naming anything yet. So it is a good idea. Anytime you're putting anything in here, you're going to want to start naming your tags, because you're going to be using that in your style sheet, in your Java file, or your JavaScript file. And this is all something you're going to need to call later. So you're going to want to get in a good habit of giving them classes or IDs and everything you're doing. So a good thing on this ordered list, I could just say, we'll give it an ID of order dash list dash names. And maybe down here, I want to give all these LIs the order list of names. So an ID list of names in there. So what I can do, another shortcut, I can hit Alt. So I'm already clicked on this LI one here. I can click or press on Alt and then I click down. And now every line that I clicked on is highlighted. And now I can type on out. Since I'm going to call them all the same thing, order list, names. Boom. We just saved ourselves a few seconds, but that's going to save you a lot of time down the road. Another thing, so we'll do this. Let's copy this one up here. Unordered list names. All right, another trick you can do, you can hit Control D. Can't remember. Control. All right, so there you go. All right, forget my own shortcuts. It's hard. It's a lot harder when you're explaining it than just doing it. So if you press on Control Alt, and I'm already clicked on this line, and then I hit the down arrow, it'll do the same thing, except you can just do it with the down arrow. It's a lot easier if everything's in a row like this to just do that. If you're using the Alt and then clicking, those are normally going to be out of place and not down in a straight row. So again, we'll put these ID names as well, because maybe I want to put the same style on. Again, it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you find out later that you don't want them all to have it, maybe you want them to all have different, just name it something different and then style it in the style sheet differently. Again, the naming is up to you. As long as you're consistent, it's easy to understand for yourself and maybe your team, then you're good to go. Like when you're working with people, they're going to have their own ways of doing things. So you guys are going to have to learn them, or maybe your company has a specific way that they want you to do it. Then that's fine and dandy. I don't think most are going to bother you about that, but there are going to be some people that kind of want you to do it their way if you're working for a company. So in the end, most of the time people won't be bothering you with it, but you know, things happen. So again, I want to, well, you know what, we're going to just use this as class. Some different stuff of it. Okay. All right, so another cool thing that we can do, we can actually drag this to the side and we can split our screen inside of VS Code. Super, super helpful. I believe you can do it again, but that gets a little bit more confusing. You can have like your HTML file, open CSS, and then your JavaScript. If your screen's big enough, a lot of people, they might not have the biggest screen, but if this is something that you're doing for work, I'm supposing you at least have a decent sized monitor or two. For me, I do work on two screens. Right now, I'm just showing you on my main, and then I have my other on the other side with some notes, trying to get a little bit more organized in these videos. But again, like if you have all three folders open or files open, it's gonna help you as you work. You don't have to keep clicking back and forth. So again, all you have to do, like I can drag this back to the other one, easy, and I can drag it back out. I can also drag the HTML out. Doesn't matter which one you drag. For me, I always keep my HTML on the left, then styles, then Java. So, all right. So now we're gonna style out. We'll just say it doesn't matter which one I do. So we'll do unordered. Oops. Well, it's also easy because you can then just start copying. And then you just put a period, boom, and it gets a lot faster. You don't even have to type. It's great. So we'll say these are, we'll change their opacity. So we'll make them, you know, little see-through. There you go. And then maybe I want all the ordered list for some odd reason to have a line through. Oh, we'll make them bold. So we'll do, you have font. See, and as soon as you start clicking, it's going to have helpful tools. As you've been seeing, things pop up. If I want to do border, it's going to, you start typing in border and everything for border comes up. You might not know what they all mean, and that's fine. What you can do is you can start testing them out. You can start clicking on whatever you need. That is not the one I want to click on. So right here, you have some indications on the side. You can read about them. And just using it. Font family, that's going to be whatever font style you want to use. So maybe I want to, I don't know, the Apple one is popular right now. So I make all those ones a different font style. And then, let's see here. Let's do something else. Oh, yeah, we're going to make it bold, right? So we'll do that to make something bold or change its weight. We're going to do font weight. So you can lighter, bolder. You have all these different variations. Again, if you're learning something, it's good to watch videos on it. Use it. Go in, make something. It doesn't, you could set a project, all right? You find a web page and you can just start trying to build certain aspects of it or just get it to look similar. You could pick one part, take a screenshot of one area of it and build that div up. You know, how many divs do you need? Is it 2 divs? Is it 1 div? Is it, how many more things are you going to put inside of it? And you just give yourself easier things. So I've clicked lighter. So it's all about practice, you know. If you don't practice it, it's not going to work out for you. So we have bolder. Something's wrong here. Oh, see, and there's my first mistake. I put a dot. That's why I was wondering. I noticed it didn't change, I thought, because I put a dot. And what did I do? I made it an ID. And this is where consistency kind of runs true. So if you start ID here, class there, ID class, ID class. If you're using IDs and classes together, that's great. But like, since these are very similar, it's just easier to just do, if that's an ID, just make that one an ID. And if they both have a class, then that's fine. But the style type of the naming is very similar. So choosing one, if you want the main container to be a class and all these to be divs, that's fine. And then you can still add an ID to it later if that's what you want. But for what we need now, I need to make that a hash. Hit save, and boom, now we have it working.